Now, the civil war that's devastated Syria for more than 2 years has seemingly changed beyond recognition from the initial conflict. Rebel forces and al-Qaeda-linked factions that once fought side by side in the anti-Assad push are now pitted against each other in violent battles. And reports suggest that increasingly the more radical elements appear to be gaining ground. Well, in the most recent incident, we can see here, they seized the strategic town of Azaz near the Turkish border, ousting the Free Syrian Army rebels. Well, jihadists stormed the area on Wednesday in some of the most severe fighting between the two factions yet. Well, the town sits on a key rebel weapons supply route, raising fears that arms could fall into the hands of Islamist militants. Assaults by al-Qaeda-linked extremists have become a daily headache for Syria's Kurdish minority as well. Although the Kurds managed to, drive them out of a village earlier this week, more than 20 people reportedly died in the clash on both sides. Let's cross live now to James Corbett, who's been closely following events here. Tell us, thanks for joining us, first of all, I should say, but why are we seeing this split within the opposition ranks? I mean, al-Qaeda-linked factions were supporting the opposition greatly. What seems to have happened?
Well, I think that we can see in the latest clashes that have occurred since the chemical weapons attack and the lack of outside intervention, I think we can see a bit of, I suppose, restlessness on the part of the outside insurgent forces that are seeking to cause a greater ruckus in the country. And we're hoping that the chemical weapons attack would draw in that foreign military intervention. But without that, I think that all bets are off the table, and the foreigners, the foreign jihadists who have no real home in Syria to worry about, I think, are not so concerned about the long-term consequences for the country as the native fighters would be.
But you say a greater ruckus there. I mean, what's the agenda of these radicals in Syria, in your opinion?
Well, there are, I think, a lot of different people at the table, a lot of different countries that have their own interests in what's going on in Syria right now that range everywhere from the Saudis, who are just interested in making sure that Shia rebellion is not successful in any country and making sure that the Shias are put down in their own country. You have Qatar and Turkey, who are interested in regional dominance and some of the pipeline politics related to some of the proposed pipelines that are going through Syria. You have Israel, which is always worried about threats to itself from some of the groups in the area, and you have foreign U.S. and NATO allies that are always interested in what's happening in the region. So you have a lot of different players that are there for different reasons, and then you have these al-Nusra Front and other foreign jihadists that are being shipped in as sort of the sword of these different interested parties at the table. So it creates a very violent and chaotic situation, and to a certain extent, for some of the interested parties there, the chaos is in fact the goal of what's happening there, rather than any particular outcome. I think that the destabilization plays into the hands of many of the people who want to see the Syrian government basically thrown off kilter and destabilized.
It's interesting you mentioned Turkey there, and Turkey has already closed one of its supply routes in the area. Is it enough to make sure that the arms which are being shipped to Syria won't fall into the hands of jihadists, for example?
I think it's much, much too late for that. And we've seen not only that this has been a likely consequence of what's been happening there, but has been, in fact, already happening for quite some time. And I think that all of the arms and funds and training that's been supplied to the Free Syrian Army, I think, have been equally falling into the hands of the foreign jihadists and the others that, as I say, are there to create the bigger ruckus. I don't think that there's any way to really stop the flow of weapons or funds from into one group going into the other group's hands. And I think that has always been a bit of a pipe-deep dream and something that has been sold to the public of the West, for example, that's been wary of this type of intervention. But I think it's just been a pipe dream that they've been selling them.
I mean, it is a complicated situation, and to some extent it looks like both the army and the rebels are facing the same enemy. I mean, how could this play out?
Well, I suppose there are a number of different scenarios, and I think it really does depend quite a bit on what happens at the international geopolitical level, especially now with the latest UN report and the wranglings over Syrian disarmament. And I think that a lot will rest in the hands of the quote-unquote so-called international community, whatever that means these days, and some of the real big divisions that are happening right now between, for example, of course, the US and Russia.
OK, we'll have to leave it there. Journalist James Corbett, thanks very much indeed for that.